Christmas without you on the Disenfranchised podcast, where that podcast all about those franchises of one, those films that fancy themselves full-fledged franchises before falling flat on their face after the first film. I am your host, Stephen Foxworthy, and joining me, as always, the man who's usually a turtle and rarely a zebra, ladies, it's my co-host, Brett Wright. Hey, Brett.
Ho, 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 Stephen.
And how are you this merry and bright evening?
I've been better, but
I'm sorry to hear that, dude.
it is what it is.
It's at least that.
I've grown accustomed.
Isn't everything?
I've grown accustomed to being sick. So
That's not good, dude. That's not good at all. I mean, you have insurance, man. You can get that looked at.
Well, no, I mean I actively am.
Okay, well that's good.
It's just it is what it is.
I mean, sure.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
And also joining us, our own gold-plated whore, it's Tucker. Hey, Tucker.
Hey, that wasn't so bad. I'll take that moniker. Before the recording, Stephen was like, I'm going to make fun of you a little bit. Was that was making fun of me? That was an honor, Stephen. Thank you.
Oh, well, hey, happy to help,
Thank
man.
you so much.
I got you.
It's nice because I consider myself a retired whore, really,
Okay.
more than anything. But I look back on those glory days and what a wild time to be alive. I'll tell you what.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, we are kicking off the holiday season a little bit early this year. Usually we limit our Christmas episode or our holiday themed episode to just one right around the Christmas Day time. But this year we're going a little big. And
for our format, Black Christmas is the gift that keeps on giving.
It really is. And so we're doing a Blackest Christmas miniseries, and we're going to cap that off with one of the most depressing movies of 2023. So it's a month of celebration all down the line. And so today, to kick it all off, we are talking about 1974's Black Christmas, the original OG, written by one Mr. A. Roy Moore, directed by the immortal Bob Clark, and starring Olivia Hussey, Cordelia, Margot Kidder, John Saxon, the fucking great John Saxon, Marion Waldman, Andrea Martin, James Edmond, Douglas McGrath, Art Hindle, Lynn Griffin, so many more. Gentlemen, what a cast. What a picture.
Indeed.
It's all right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So I think I know the answer to this question already, but just for the sake of our listeners, what is your individual, what are your individual histories with Black Christmas?
Well, you have to pick one of us.
I was just gonna let
just say
whoever...
at the same time. You want to go at the same time, Tucker? That'll be fun.
I'd like to. That sounds like comedy gold. But also,
as the person who edits this, he might not be as inclined.
I don't know. I'll let you go first, Brett.
All right. Well, yeah, because I mean, it literally zero. I mean, well, I have a little bit of history, but I don't really want to get into that. So
fair.
Otherwise, pretty much none.
Okay.
So.
There you go.
Right on. Tucker?
I once dated a woman who was one of her favorite movies. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. That I had a feeling that's what you were referring to. But yes.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with this film all the way up to actually seeing it. Like I've known about it for a really long time, and I've understood its significance, and I've read essays written on. I have a book that has like an honest to God book that has like essays in it about horror films before, like this was like in the mid 90s before people were taking horror films seriously, like as actual art,
Sure.
And there's a couple essays in there about it. So I'm very familiar with it. I just never seen it. I never saw the remakes because I figured, well, I should see the original.
You should.
First. And I just never got around to it.
See,
I think it's because I saw... Go ahead, Brett.
I'm going to go off on a whole thing. You finish what you're doing.
I was just gonna say, because I think I saw the original Tales from the Crypt movie, the British one from the
Right.
70s.
Future episode of this podcast.
Oh, I can't wait, you guys. That's so good. And the sequel, well, you can't. It has a sequel, Vault of Horror.
Is Vault of Horror a sequel?
Yeah. I mean, do anthology movies have sequels? Well, yeah,
Yes.
Trilogy of Terror does, right? And so, and Creep Show. But yeah, there's Vault of Horror is a sequel. It's like the same company. Like, I think it was advertised as a sequel. I've always thought of it as a sequel.
I'm going to do some research while you talk.
Do it. Anyway, so I saw the classic Tales from the Crypt, was later turned into an episode directed by Bob Zemeckis himself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what the story's called, but it's the one where the lady, spoilers, where the lady kills her husband, and then the psycho Santa guy comes and terrorizes her and her child.
Yeah, Zemeckis did it for the Tales from the Crypt
For
TV
the show, yeah.
Yeah.
But originally it was part of that original movie, and I really wish Vault of Horror weren't a sequel to that, because I would love to cover that with you guys, because that's one of the first horror films that I ever really attached myself to. Like, after I saw Night of the Living Dead and Psycho, I was just like getting whatever I could get my hands on, and I was like, what? Tales from the Crypt? Like, that's familiar.
Oh, I guess I didn't realize Vault of Horror was a sequel. So
It's totally a sequel, dude.
oops,
Totally a sequel.
that's my bad.
That's unfortunate. We can pretend it's not and just do it anyway.
That story is called And All Through the House.
Yup. And it's pretty, like, I like the differences between the British film version and the show version done by Bobby Z. Because just like we've talked about recently a lot, starting with the Night of the Living Dead remake,
Mm-hmm.
like, you've seen the original, so you know how you think you know how it's going to go.
Right.
But they kind of go the other way sometimes, and I appreciate the differences between those two. I think they're both really great adaptations of that story. Why did I even bring this up? You guys,
don't
Christmas
know.
horror, so it's kind of
yeah.
related.
Like, I saw that, and then I saw another Christmas horror movie. It's not Silent Night, Deadly Night. It was something else, and I can't think of what it was.
Silent Night, Bloody Night?
That was probably the one.
That's like
just
the
so
earlier
dull.
one from like the 50s or something.
It's so dull. And so I don't know. I feel like I had seen a good one and I saw a bad one, and Black Christmas was like, okay, whatever. I don't really care. The only thing that has always kind of made me want to watch it over the years is that Olivia Hussey's in it, and I think she's rad.
She's swell. She is. She's great.
She's really good in Psycho 4, even though Psycho 4 is awful and her character is awful and the things that they make her do in that movie are awful. She's wonderful in it. I mean, she's no stranger to controversy, so I'm not surprised that she took that role and kind of gave it her all. But also, she was really great in It. Like, they didn't use her enough, honestly, in It. We could have used some more Olivia Hussey in the 90s It miniseries.
We could have just used some more Olivia Hussey in the 90s, period. Full stop, end of sentence.
Agreed.
But she's fucking phenomenal in this, I think. But yeah.
That's kind of the candle that has, like, stayed lit for me to eventually watch this movie. And now I've watched it.
And now you've watched it.
It's like a thing I can cross off of things that I've been meaning to do for like over a decade.
And thanks to this podcast, you have that opportunity, and you're welcome.
Yeah, dude. Thanks,
I'm
man.
happy to be able to do that for you, Brett.
Because I've seen this, it opens the floodgates to the remakes, which are things I've always also wanted to see. Anyway,
well,
Brett,
buckle up, you're in luck.
Yeah, well, that's the weird thing. Like, you had known what sort of movie Black Christmas is in terms of its like legacy. I never did. I never heard anything crazy about how good this movie is or how much it like sets the stage for other slashers. Like, I never heard that, so I never thought. I just thought it was another one of those, holiday horror movies they made back in the day after Halloween. I never looked into it. I never, thought it was worth watching. But I mean, I'm glad I have, and we'll get into it later. But I don't really agree with any of those assessments. But we'll get there.
Now,
Interestingly enough,
if go ahead, Tiger.
I would say interestingly enough, Halloween kind of was born out of. I read recently that Halloween was kind of born out of a conversation between John Carpenter and maybe Bob Clark about what a sequel to Black Christmas would be.
Correct. So we will
And
get
like what
into
other
that.
holiday that they would go into, and it kind of like it's sort of, for good or for ill, the reason Halloween exists in a lot of ways.
Yeah, in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, but we can.
But
we
I'm
can.
probably going to agree with some of the things that you don't like about it, because I'm pretty much in the middle, which is how this always goes.
I mean,
somebody's
yeah,
extreme
I
one
don't.
side, somebody's extreme the other, and somebody's in the middle.
that's why
Well, I
it's
mean,
good
I
to
don't
have
hate
three
it,
of us
though.
now, because Brett and I used to just knock down, drag out, and now we've
Yes.
got now there's one of us gets to be the neutralizing, polarizing force, which is always
Yeah,
nice.
but I'm more. I think I'm more in line with you, Tucker. I don't hate it. I'm not
Yeah.
on the far end of the spectrum. Like, I get it, I respect it, but I got problems with it. So
I
mean,
think it looks great, you guys. I
I
love the
agree.
colors in this
Well,
movie.
yeah.
I love the lighting. I want to live in that world.
It's
Like, that
beautiful.
reminds me, I know it's the early 70s, but it reminds me of the 80s with like the wallpaper and the yellow light bulbs and the
Mhm.
coffee tables with trinkets and big gaudy glass ashtrays on them, and the ornate furniture and the telephone desks. I miss telephone tables and desks, because you just have it in your hallway and that's where the telephone was, or like by
Yeah.
the steps. Before you started
Mhm.
mounting them on walls, you had to have a little table or something to put them on.
It was literally just on the table.
Yeah, dude.
I first caught this movie in the far-flung year of 2020. During a
That was
little
that year you
thing
watched all the movies.
during a little thing called the COVID-19 pandemic, where I watched over 400 movies over the course of the year. And one day I decided that I was going to try to watch 25 Christmas movies in between December 1st and December 25th. And I got into a
Easy.
lot of holiday horror during that time. And one of the
Nice.
tangents that I went on is I watched all three of the Black Christmases, one right after
So
the
you're an
other.
old hat. You're an old hat. You're the geezer here.
I'm something, man. Like, it just feels weird
The
that
Black
there's
Christmas
something
hipster of the group.
that I've reckoned with that you guys haven't. It just
Yeah,
feels
dude.
really weird.
Congratulations.
Particularly
Congratulations, man. How's that
because
feel?
it's an obscure 70s thing. So Tucker, that's kind of your wheelhouse. It's a horror movie. That's Brett's wheelhouse. So I just feel very odd that I'm the guy bringing this to the table going, oh yeah, I've seen this. This is
Look,
great.
This is another one of those instances where I gotta go, do you need my horror card? Should I turn it in because I hadn't seen it until today? I don't know.
Look, man, no, because I mean, when I started to get into horror, and as you guys know, as I mentioned many times, I'm a very late bloomer when it comes to my horror fandom. I felt a responsibility, and Brett, you actually assisted me with this in 2019 when I started to put together my list of horror movies that I needed to see for Halloween. When I was doing my 31 in October marathon, my first one, you kind of helped me craft that list. Like, what horror movies do I need to see? Like, what are the important ones to see? And in 2020, when no one was doing anything but just watching movies and sitting around, I binged a lot of movies and crossed off. Like, I watched all of the Halloween franchise, all of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, all of the Friday the 13th franchise. Like, I watched all of those as just
All
a
the
way.
screams.
All the Screams. I watched The Exorcist for the first time. Like, I crossed a lot of have not seens off my list. So, and Black Christmas was one that I was just like, when it comes to holiday horror, that's the quote unquote the one. So I made sure to put that one on my list, and I liked it, but I think I liked it a lot more on this rewatch. Just really engaging with it. I love how it looks. I love how fucking creepy it is, how uneasy that ambiguous ending kind of, and you guys know I'm a sucker for a good ambiguous ending. Just how good that ending is. Like, it yeah, just this one kind of grabbed me. It went up a whole star rating for me this watch. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's stars a lot.
it is
A
for me
lot.
especially. Yeah, that's quite a bit.
Yeah,
So no,
dude.
I'm currently adding this to my Amazon wish list. So the
Hey,
4K of
they got
this,
a 4K.
they got a 4K, man.
Of course they do.
Of course they do.
Bringing Out the Dead doesn't even have a Blu-ray, and here we are.
Yep.
Fucking Black
That's
Christmas on
that is
4K.
the hill you die on. Is the
You
Bringing Out the
guys,
Dead doesn't have a Blu-ray.
I own the perfect example of my Bringing Out the Dead doesn't have a Blu-ray, and that's the 4K of God Told Me To. What the fuck is that movie doing on 4K? I love that movie, and I'm so glad it's on 4K. I'm so glad because it looks great. Like, it looks like film. It's insane how good that movie looks for a shitty little Larry Cohen movie, right?
In fairness, Tucker, I think I own the epitome of the Bringing Out the Dead doesn't have a
Oh
Blu-ray.
God, is it Howard the Duck?
I own Howard the Duck on 4K.
Yeah, dude. Where's my Scorsese, man?
Right.
Scorsese, Nicolas Cage, Patty Arquette, like, come on.
They've got to do that.
Ving Rhames,
Criterion has got to
fucking come
remaster that.
on. Look, time's gonna tell on that one. I may have been waiting for 20 years, but at some point people are gonna look at that and be like, "Oh yeah, this is fucking amazing." And then
Everyone
people
that
will
I've talked
actually
to that
talk about
revisits
it when
it
Scorsese
goes,
comes up.
yeah, this is really good. Like everyone that I talk to that revisits that movie is like, yeah, how
I
did we
like
sleep
it
on this?
because it's not like Scorsese has a style,
Mm-hmm.
right? He pretty much kind of does things a certain way with variations on it and everything.
Right.
But there are a few movies of his, like Cape Fear being one of them,
Mm-hmm.
and Bringing Out the Dead being another, where he kind of jumps out of his comfort zone and does something a little out there for
Yeah.
Scorsese,
Right.
a little out there. And that's
Just
why
not his normal wheelhouse. And that's, yeah, it's exciting when he does stuff like
and
that.
I love regular ass Scorsese, but boy, when that boy gets frisky and wild, whoo,
Mm-hmm.
that's why my two favorite Scorseses are straight up Bringing Out the Dead and Cape Fear, dude. Because those are the ones where he's like, let's go batshit, dude. Let's go nuts. You wanna get nuts?
Let's get nuts.
That Scorsese, like Michael Keaton heard him say that, and he's like, we should put that in the movie. That's what that
should be
was.
in the movie.
Yeah.
You guys, let's put that in the movie. Guys, that should be in the movie. Absolutely.
Yeah, dude.
No, but Black Christmas, man. Black Christmas. What a movie. I had a lot of fun with this one. Kind of bummed that you guys didn't have as much fun with it as I did, but you know what? I think this is a movie that stands up to rewatch. I will say that. Just right off the top.
I think for me, my expectations were too high.
Potentially.
Considering how much that I've engaged with it without actually engaging with it for the past 20, 25 years.
That makes sense.
I was just more disappointed really than anything else. It is good. It's great even. And I think that something that gives it more credit is how much influence that it's had on slashers and the horror genre as a whole.
Right.
Like, no matter what my star rating is on the quality of this film, its influence rating is a fucking 5 with a bullet.
Yeah. And I don't think it's very difficult to deny that. Like when most people look at proto slashers, this is, I think, toward the top of the list. I think some would debate whether or not Texas Chainsaw Massacre belongs on the list. I think it does.
I think it does.
Friend of the podcast.
I don't think Psycho does.
Peeping Tom and Psycho are the two that most people like point to as like the earliest of those. And Peeping Tom, I would say maybe more than Psycho. Have you guys, either of you guys seen Peeping Tom, Michael?
I have not.
No.
Oh, it's pretty good. That's Michael Powell directed that one, and it ruined his career because it was too edgy for the 1960s, for the late 50s, early 60s. So, but no, that movie fucking
it was
rips.
3 edgy, 5 you.
Correct.
That's what it was.
Damn you. You asshole. You gold-plated whore.
That's me.
Yay. Sparkle. But yeah, we but no, yeah, I don't know. Let's just crack into it, man.
Well, so I was gonna say, I think the reason that I didn't like it as much is just it's gotten its own way, I guess. I don't really know how to describe this phenomenon that I've ran into myself and seen other people run into, where it's just you've seen everything that's been influenced by it before you see the original thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's not as, like, oh my God, this is incredible because I've seen everything that borrowed and stole and was influenced by it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hit the same way.
And I think for me that was the first watch for me. But when I rewatched it this time, I kind of endeavored to meet the movie on its terms where it was. And I got to tell you, I had a lot more fun with it this last time. I forgot how fucking funny this thing is. Like I was having a great time. I was laughing. I was like getting spooked. I was having a blast, man.
The cops are so incompetent. That's what I found to be humorous. They're real bad at
Particular
their jobs.
particularly Sergeant Nash. The lovable doofus Sergeant Nash.
I'm surprised they didn't put in like the goofy like slide whistle and boing boing music like in Last House on the Left when the two cops come in and like all of a sudden it's a screwball comedy when
Yeah,
it's literally the most horrifying and disturbing film you've ever seen the rest of the time.
correct. Yeah,
And that music comes in bing bing boing bing rip.
you
Like
get this.
what?
It is kind of almost like a Keystone Cops routine when the cops show up, and
Oh my
fortunately, you've
god.
got motherfucking John Saxon to kind
Yeah,
of
dude.
like ground the fucker. But like, oh, God, I. John Saxon. I'd forgotten he was in this movie and he shows up. I'm like, fucking John Saxon's here.
Yeah,
And I just
dude.
kind of relaxed because I knew I was in good hands, like presaging the role he would become famous for playing by 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that he was a last minute addition to the cast?
I did not know that. Tell us more about that, Stephen.
So they had hired actor Edmund O'Brien, Academy Award winner Edmund O'Brien, to initially play the lieutenant. And he showed up, he came to the set, and or they picked him up from the airport and he was in a wheelchair. And they were like, So like they took him to the hotel and he's able to walk and he's like, able to get changed, but he's taking a long time with it. And then like they take him out to dinner before the shoot and they realize that he doesn't know where he is. And
I did read about this. He had dementia.
he has early onset Alzheimer's. It would take him, he wouldn't die for another 10 years. But they realized, like, particularly because they were going to be filming in like the cold Canadian winter, like we cannot subject this man to this because it's going to take him twice as long to actually film what he needs to film because he's not going to be able to remember it. And so they had to
Because
cut
they
him.
shot it in Toronto, eh?
Yeah. Just outside of Toronto. And I think it was the cinematographer had worked with John Saxon on something before and just called him up and was like, hey, you've got 2 days to get to Toronto if you want this part. And he came out, he showed up, he did the part, and he fucking killed it.
John
And
Saxon always shows up.
he does. And I have to
He's a shower
believe
upper.
that this movie had a lot to do with Craven casting him in a very similar kind of role in Nightmare on Elm Street.
I could see that. I mean, he did do a lot of other stuff, and some of those other roles were police people as well.
Sure.
But I mean, considering the genre, like, I mean, even Nightmare on Elm Street owes a little bit to this movie, so I wouldn't be surprised.
And I think, and again, it presages the slasher genre in a lot of very specific and very interesting ways without fully leaning into all of the tropes that Halloween would crystallize by being as big and as crazy and as epic as it is.
Something very similar to Halloween and Texas Chainsaw, for that matter, is that there's not. I feel like this is a movie, much like those two movies, that people remember being a lot more violent and gory than they are.
Absolutely.
Whereas most everything, you don't see it, but the way that it's orchestrated in front of you, you don't have to see it.
Exactly.
Like,
it's very
still
Jaws-esque
horrifying.
in that regard. Like you don't actually see the killer, but you see what he hath wrought. And this movie comes out a year before Jaws too. So like you've got kind of all these little like flagposts and all these ways that it influences the genre and other films as well. I watched a documentary on this movie, and one of the people they interviewed is the director of the original My Bloody Valentine, Canadian director George Michalka, and I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm probably getting that wrong. But
Close enough.
he's sitting there talking. He goes, I just kind of unconsciously put these elements in my film. These aren't teenagers. I wanted to do like more adult, and I subconsciously put all these things like the little sing song by Baby Bunting, like the miner sings something similar as he's crawling away at the end of the film. Like, he goes, I subconsciously put all these things in the film, and then I went back and watched Black Christmas after I did it. And I was like, oh, I'm just cribbing from this. Like, this is where I got all that. I just didn't realize that this is where I got all that from. Like,
Yeah.
it's got quite the reach, and this is like one of the highest grossing Canadian films of its day too.
Man,
Well, Brett had mentioned in the
Canada's throwing out some fantastic horror bangers back then.
Mm-hmm.
Brett had mentioned in the chat the connections between this and My Bloody Valentine, and I have to agree. It's really one of the more it's an easy line to draw from between those two films for sure. Though My Bloody Valentine, it does kind of seem like an upgrade in some ways. Absolutely. Not so much. I'm not gonna say. I will say in quality, but not specifically in quality. But like, it took specifically the things from Black Christmas, and just kind of amped them up a little bit and like fit the pieces together a little more. Like, what I'm trying to say is
just say what you're trying to say, Tucker.
That Black Christmas crawled so that My Bloody Valentine could motherfucking sprint.
Okay,
dude.
That's I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this movie is I thought it was great.
Well, maybe I need to break my rewatch rule and give it another shot sometime.
Do it. I'm gonna rewatch it just simply because I feel like I had so much baggage going into this about this film. Not like baggage in a bad way, just like a lot of preconceived notions about this film. And I don't know, it's like by the end I was more into it than I was at the beginning, but I still just it took me a while to get there, and so I kind of want to have that experience where
it's
like
a slow
it's all
simmer
good,
for sure.
Instead of me being disappointed first and then a little bored and then like, oh, this is actually really good. And I feel like if I watch it again, maybe it'll just be good.
And I think that's kind of where I started with this one too when I watched it a few years ago. So I have a feeling this one's going to join the regular rotation club. I think this will be one I revisit, maybe annually, maybe every other annually. But yeah, I had a blast with this one. I had a good, and my partner's not seen it, so I may end up watching it again this year, just so I can watch it with her, just so I can show it to her, because I think she might get a kick out of it. So.
Stephen, you were asking the patrons like what kind of Patreon content they wanted for this month.
Mm-hmm.
I say a special second viewing of OG Black Christmas reassessment.
Where we all come back
it
and
tomorrow.
Oh God, no, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. Yeah. We've got too much other stuff to record tomorrow. Let's not.
Here's what we do. Okay, so we do this one, and then whatever other movies we have. No, you already said. We'll do 06, and then 2019, and then we'll do that other movie you didn't mention. But for the Patreon, we'll do rewatch of OG Black Christmas. So we'll have the remakes in our system as well. You see what I'm saying?
I see.
It'll be like an ultimate reassessment.
I will say that the remakes of this one end up going in some very interesting, very different directions. I'm excited. I will leave it at that. I don't want
like the cast of at least one of these remakes.
Right. So there you go.
So if you want to hear that, if we end up doing it, you should go to patreon.com/disenfranchised and join our Patreon.
If you got $5, won't you lay your money down?
Yeah, dude.
Because we got a ton of great stuff back there for you. Just let us know. So what do you say? We're about a half an hour into this, and what do you say we go ahead and jump into the plot of this Mamma Jamma?
I like that idea.
Sure.
So this is a part of the show we call the plot in 60 seconds. This is the part where Brett Wright, our immortal lore master, will roll the D6 of destiny. He has assigned 2 sides to each of us, and whichever side is rolled, that is the person who will be recounting the plot of this film, 1974's Black Christmas, in 60 seconds or less. Brett, who's it going? First of all, remind us whose side is whose, and then let us know who it's going to be.
Yes, so I believe I have it written down here. Steven, you're 1 and 2. I'm 3 and 4. Tucker, you're 5 and 6.
That's how I recall.
We had to standardize that, so because I just wasn't ever rolling me. So
Seniority, that's what that is. That's the seniority.
The pecking order.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean he's not wrong.
Yeah.
And you're higher because this was your idea. So
That's why I always put you in the middle of the mix, Steven, because you're the glue that holds us together.
Oh shucks, guys.
Yeah, dude. You're the reason why it sucked when I hosted last week. What did we hit? What did we see?
2.
It's not me. Fuck yeah.
Is me.
Right. That means I can go pee while you do this.
All right. Well, that means, Brett, you have to put 60 seconds on the clock.
Indeed.
While Tucker is off making his bladder gladder. Goodness, can't even talk. This is going to be fun.
All right. I have 60 seconds on the clock. You may begin whenever you fucking please.
Sounds great. Outside of a sorority house in Bedford, Ontario, a man is sneaking in to a Christmas party, and the sorority sisters get an obscene phone call with a guy they call the Moaner, who's just really being really crass and nasty, and they're all kind of like, ew, gross. And one of the girls goes upstairs, and she gets strangled by the guy who snuck in with a plastic bag, and he puts her up in the attic. And everyone's kind of leaving for Christmas break, so no one really notices that people are going missing until the girl's father shows up, and he's looking for her, and no one really knows where she is. One of the other girls is pregnant, and she tells her boyfriend, who gets really kind of like mad and possessive. And eventually the killer who's living in the house starts picking everybody off. The inept cops get involved. They figure out the calls are coming from inside the house, and they show up to kill the guy who's there, who happens to be the pregnant girl's boyfriend. He gets killed, but it turns out after all the cops leave and they leave the girl alone in bed, that the real killer is still in the house.
10 seconds.
Imagine that.
And then you hear the phone
5
ring
seconds.
13 times because he calls them after he kills everyone. And his name is Billy and Agnes. And don't tell them what we did, Agnes.
Time.
You guys, he says cunt. So many. Can I say cunt? I can say cunt on here, right?
I don't see
He
why
says
not.
it
I mean,
so many times.
yeah.
I was
And
really
like,
does.
I love the word cunt. I love it. I think it's great. And if I were a woman, I would feel empowered by that word. But I'm not a woman.
In Britain.
I'm not a woman, so I don't really have an opinion on it. But I love that word phonetically.
I mean, you
it's
do
beautiful.
have an opinion on it. You're
I'm
giving
saying,
us your opinion on it right now.
I'm saying, but maybe it's only like a little bit valid instead of like all the way valid, because I'm not someone who has a vagina, which is what cunt is synonymous with. It's a synonym. It's literally a synonym. If you look in the thesaurus under vagina, cunt will come up.
It's I guess, I don't know if euphemism is the right word, but
a slang term.
Sure.
But that's not how the British use it.
No.
The Europeans.
No.
They use it in a completely different way.
And let me tell you, Brett, I lived in the Europe for a while. No
You
big
lived
deal.
in the Europe?
No big deal.
Europe?
Not just any Europe. The Europe.
The Europe.
Europe, okay? And they're so much looser with sexuality over there. Like, it's not taboo. Like, sex is just a thing, and nudity is just a thing, and who fucking cares? It's the human body. You know? So I think that has a lot to do with how they just throw cunt around as well. Because, like, it's just cunt, man. And for all you people who don't like the word cunt, I apologize. If there's enough of you and you leave comments, I will provide a beeped version of every episode going forward with every instance of me saying cunt beeped out.
I don't know that we need to make it a habit to keep saying it, but okay.
But I like it. It's such a good word. It's like fuck. Okay,
Have
let's
you
look at
ever,
this.
Tucker, have you ever seen the vagina monologues?
I thought you were gonna ask if I'd ever seen a vagina,
No.
and I'm like, no. What's it like?
Have you ever seen playwright Eve Ensler's the Vagina Monologues?
Eat, Pray, Love. Is that what you said? I
Eve
have not
Ensler's
seen that.
The Vagina Monologues.
No, but much like this film before I saw it, I'm very like adjacently familiar with it.
Please stop that.
These are the vagina monologues. And this is me like, oh no, wait, I'm not ready.
I was in my youth. And by youth I mean my 20s. I ran tech for a production
You were a
of
theater kid.
the Vagina Monologues. Yeah.
Nice.
And I was the lone penis involved in that production. Everybody else in the production was female. I was not. And it is an insanely good play. Like, I learned a lot from that production. But one of the monologues is about a woman who does feel empowered by referring to her vagina as a cunt. And she says that word so many times over the course of just like 3 minutes.
Now I gotta see it.
And you're just like the first time I heard it, I'm like back on the soundboard, just kind of holding my temples going, what is this? And then by the end, I was just like, fuck yeah, you go, girl. Like, it's an insanely amazing production, or amazing show. And if there's a good production showing near you, particularly if you're male, go see it. Like, I learned a lot.
But on Max, streaming on Max, is the 2002 version, created and performed by Eva Ensler. So it's the original person doing the thing that she wrote. So I'm putting that on my list.
Hell yes. And I want you to watch it tonight, so that when we
no, SNL's on at 11:30.
I mean, we might still be recording by then.
No,
we better fucking not be.
We bet not be. All right. Now, if we'd had a what are we watching, I'd be a little more lenient, but this does not need to go on for 3 hours, Stephen. Ooh, I still need to watch Blue Beetle. What was I looking for? Oh yeah, vagina monologues.
We were talking about the moaner, and I don't think the guy calling at the beginning of the movie is Billy, but I think they think he is.
See, that's kind of what sort of confused me during it, is because it seemed like they did have just a guy.
It's definitely the same actor. It is absolutely still Nick. It is absolutely Nick Mancuso.
But do you think it's supposed to be the same character though? Because I feel like there was a distinct difference between the cunt guy and everything that came after it.
I agree.
He wasn't even in the house at that point.
Correct. He's still coming into the house at that point, right?
But at the same time, I mean, it seems well established that the killer just has multiple personalities and can change his voice at will. So I think you could argue either way, honestly.
And that's one thing that I both forgive but do not, that makes me feel kind of uneasy about this film, is how this person that's doing this is not like a Jason or a Freddy or a Leatherface or something. This is a severely mentally ill person. Like, and they make that very clear that this is not an evil person. This person is nuts. Like, and in a way that's almost kind of realistic to a fault.
Yeah.
That kind of makes me uncomfortable, and maybe that's the point of it.
I think on some level, yeah, but and you also need to remember that, and this is, I'm not saying this is right, I'm just saying this is something that happened.
I get it.
The stigmatization of mental illness in the 70s, and even as recently as the fucking 90s or the 2000s, is pretty egregious.
Well, and while I won't excuse it or condone it, I agree with you. You know, like the more time passes, the more humanity gets less ignorant.
Correct.
I'm not saying you can't blame them. I'm just saying, you know,
that's also what I'm saying.
People then, I don't think we're all malicious. Just most of them were just ignorant.
Correct. And unfortunately, ignorance is no excuse, really.
Yeah. And if I could go back and watch it in the 70s, I would love to do that. But I have to watch it now in the 2020s.
You ain't got no Dial of Destiny.
No, I wish I did. Or a DeLorean.
It only takes you to the same place. Spoilers.
Or a TARDIS.
Any other time machine. But
you want to meet Archimedes.
Making all these Indiana Jones references I don't recognize.
Because you're the
You
only
will.
one of us that's seen that fucking movie.
I am, and I'm probably like I'm the least fan, probably. I'm very indifferent on Indiana Jones. I don't want to get off on a tangent on that, though. Please continue, Brett.
Yeah, keep going, Brett.
Well, I mean, I was just saying that, you know, I have to watch it in the view of somebody from 2020 where the world has gotten less ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that hurt the movie too, because it was my first time watching it, and I only had to view it from this lens, not an older one. So
there is a part of me that does try to reset my brain a little bit, but it doesn't always work, and it doesn't. And depending on how egregious some of those things are, it doesn't always forgive. Like, it absolutely doesn't forgive. So like, and I you know, this, I would not say this is a perfect film, but I will say it's a great one. But I think there are certain things that are holding it back, keeping it from me from seeing it as a perfect film, and that might be one of them for sure. But Billy's portrayal as someone who is very severely mentally disturbed is a choice for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I don't, for the reasons you liked the ending, I hated the ending because you know how much I hate ambiguity.
Right, you're a lore guy. You want the concretion.
And I mean, and I'll get into that's one of the main. There's like 3 main issues I have with the movie. One of them is the mental illness thing. The second one is this, that like I'm spending the entire movie trying to solve it like a regular slasher. Like, who could that possibly be? And it's too obvious that it's her boyfriend, so it can't possibly be him.
Right. They make that the reddest herring possible.
Yeah,
and come to find out, it doesn't matter. All your detective work was for nothing because you have no idea who the fuck it is.
This movie, because he's just a red herring.
And that
he is an asshole, though.
Yes.
Like, what is that dude doing?
But
like,
and again,
come on, man.
That I think is another
you
thing.
Couldn't do that.
This movie is doing really well. Is it's dealing with issues that like were starting to come to the forefront in the 70s, like women having autonomy over their bodies and being able to, you know, make career decisions and life decisions outside of a man's approval. And like this movie, I don't think it was intending to do that. Like, I think both Bob Clark and Olivia Hussey are like, no, it's not really what we were doing. We're just trying to.
It's like the Ben and Night of the Living Dead thing, where like it has a lot of weight, but it was probably not even intended.
Just kind of, and to hear Bob Clark say, we needed something else to happen when people weren't dying, so this is what was happening. Like, that's just kind of his throwaway explanation.
Well, and man, I love Olivia Hussey, and when you tell Olivia Hussey what to do with her body, it makes me mad.
I agree.
It makes me real mad. And then he goes and like he's such a toddler, dude. Like, he's.
Do you know who that guy is? Do you know who that guy is?
I don't know who that. Wait,
Cordelia?
Maybe I do.
Or Cordelia?
I've seen him in stuff.
You've probably seen him in the movie that Bob Clark saw him in that made him want to cast him in this movie, Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, I knew he was in that, but no, I don't.
He is the star child. He's Dave. My God, it's full of stars. Yeah, that's him.
The only star child I know is part of Parliament with George Clinton. It's the only star child I know.
I also
Let's get this straight.
I also know Paul Stanley. And I also know.
I guess he is a star child too.
A little guy named Ziggy Stardust too. So.
And also Greg Universe from Steven Universe is also a star child.
Still have not seen that show.
Lots of star childs around here. Star child here.
Star children.
Yeah, dude, children
we live in a galaxy of star children.
But anyway, back to my point.
Sorry.
Yes.
Well, it was a tangent. We're back now.
Yeah.
Let me get back on track with what I was saying.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So that's another. It's a perfect example of the viewing it from this lens. Like, I was trying to solve who the killer was because that's how all slasher movies are now.
Right.
They weren't then. So like, for it to be an ambiguous person, like, that was probably revolutionary. But like, I spent the whole movie trying to solve it, and I got blue balls, and it wasn't fun.
Yeah. Which is why I
was pissed off at the end.
Bob Clark himself would say this is not a slasher. He says this is a psychological horror film.
Yeah,
and I think viewed in that lens, it you would probably enjoy it more. But if you're going into it saying, slasher, yes, then.
Well, no, I mean, I get that point, but I wouldn't, just because any movie like this where there's a hidden killer or a hidden somebody, I'm going to spend the movie trying to figure out who it is. Like, just because that's the fun thing to do.
Sure.
I don't think too hard about it. As I've gone on record as saying, I just like to sit back and turn my brain off, but it's a lot of fun to try to figure out who it could be.
Right.
Especially when they're throwing you red herrings and like pointing you towards certain people, you think that it's a mystery because they present it that way.
Right.
Yeah, I view it as part of the fun, because I know there's people out there going, "Man, you're such a hypocrite. You said you don't like to solve these things." I mean, I don't, but it's part of the fun of a movie. Like it's a part of the movie. It's engagement.
Engagement is part of it. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's
I'm
part
engaging
of it.
with it. Yeah. I take. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's that thing where if you're presented with a mystery, you're presented with a whodunit, and there's no actual way. It's what I love about the Rian Johnson, Benoit Blanc mysteries, is he has the answer right in front of you. You're just not looking at it right. You're just not looking at it from the right perspective, but it's always been there. It's always been right in front of you. But I think it gets frustrating when you throw in a twist at the end that there was no way anyone could have seen coming. Like the one example that I always go back to is the Batman comic Hush by Jeff Loeb, where there's no way you can tell the identity of the mastermind behind the whole thing, because it literally is just something that he tells you on one page of the comic. And then you're just, oh, okay. And that was the answer, I guess. Like it doesn't make any sense until he puts the pieces together for you, but there's no way you could have figured that out.
Right. And I guess because that's the thing I kept thinking the entire time, though, was like, there's not enough characters in this movie that fit who could be the killer. Mm-hmm. And the one that they're presenting as the killer is clearly the red herring, so it's not him.
Right.
Who else could it fucking be? I kept saying that over and over. Like, so I guess in a way,
I could see you saying, like, screaming that at the television.
Yeah, I could see you. I can actually, now that you say that, I'm like, yeah, I can kind of see him doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Well,
he's shaking his fists in rage and getting red in the face,
shaking and crying. Who else could it be?
Just chugging rum straight from the bottle.
Down his face. It's okay. You can tell us that this movie broke you, Brett. You can let us know. We're all friends here.
We're all friends.
It's all right. Not nearly that emotive.
We like to imagine you that way, though. It's fun for us.
Yeah, in our mind's eye,
probably.
That's always how we see you, in the back of our brains. And also, because you're not that emotive, it's really fun to imagine you getting that emotive. That's really what it is.
True.
Is because really you're just such a chill, even kill dude. It's just so fun to think of you like getting just red in the face, angry, just like vibrating from every pore of your body out of anger of something. It just. Yeah. And when in reality your reaction is like, damn it, like that was probably the extent of your actual reaction.
Yeah,
but it's just
his actual reaction is like, well, who else is this supposed to be?
Pretty much.
But why is
could it be? Who else could it
be? Yeah. No, I mean
he gets a little more emotive in his voice. He's not that deadpan, but yeah.
No, the voice is where you can tell the emotions. Which
not the face.
No, not the face at all. It's a funny story that reminded me of is I asked my girlfriend the question about like that was going around the internet for a while about if you were to see me arguing with somebody on the street, what would I be arguing with them about?
Mm-hmm.
Her response was,
I thought you were asking her how often she thinks about Rome, the Roman Empire.
No, that's what she asked.
The whole thing, right? Okay,
started on that bullshit. I don't understand.
No, I agree. 100%. I'm with you there, Brett. Anyway, please. No,
I remember Brett texted me is like, "Am I supposed to be thinking about the Roman Empire?" Like, how
me too. I'm like, I never think about that. Like, am I not masculine enough? Like,
I guess not.
I guess, yeah, maybe that's what it is.
God, I love meme culture, you guys.
Just a bunch of fucking beta males over here, but yeah.
Word. And she said, I don't fucking know. I can't imagine you arguing with anybody on the street. And I'm like, yeah, that's if there's a correct answer to that question, that would be it.
I think I
Because it's
said
the street. And
I
Brett
think
will stand his ground, but he'll also avoid confrontation at pretty much all costs.
it also
Especially with a
helps
stranger.
if you get him
Like-
behind a microphone on a podcast. Then he'll
There you
tell you
go.
what he really thinks.
And I'm
dude.
comfortable with the people I'm talking to.
True.
There you
So
go.
I think I answered that question with probably something Ghostbusters related, like probably a
did.
bad Ghostbusters opinion. I think was my response to that.
yeah.
And then, but I think I prefaced it with, I can't really see you doing that, but if I could, it's probably something Ghostbusters related. I think was my full answer. But yeah,
Yeah. Which makes sense. You have intimate knowledge of that.
true.
Uh,
I've been on the receiving end of an argument on the street about Ghostbusters. So
You've been
yes,
chewed out on the street by Brett.
up
about
one side and down
Ghostbusters.
the other, my friend.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple
Nom
times.
nom nom.
Um,
Yes, true.
but
To the
anyway,
extent that Brett can't even mention Ghostbusters around me anymore.
I can't mention Afterlife.
That's
around
true. You can't.
here. No, we can't talk about that. It's taboo.
Right. It's the one thing we don't talk about on mic. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Or off mic even.
Right. At all.
So, but
Some people don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about Afterlife.
nope. So anyway, back to my point. I made my own tangent. Huzzah!
Nice. You did
Building
it.
your own
I
tangent.
did it.
Welcome.
Wait, what was my point?
Oh shit.
Oh, that the end was just, you know, a surprise. I guess if you're looking at it from the lens of like, well, there wasn't anybody it could be. So I guess the answer was in front of me the whole time. I just didn't want to believe it.
Right.
Because I knew that answer would piss me off if it was true. And surprise, it did.
Hey.
See, I don't know. For me, that's what kind of makes the pit of my stomach drop out. For me, like when I see that, I'm just like, oh my god! Like it gets like that much more disturbing and bone chilling for me in that moment.
Well, I think that's why a second watch for all of us would be good, because I think it's specifically for Brett, it wouldn't bother him so much because he already knows. Like, there's no
Right.
reason to spend time or effort on thinking about any of that. You can just kick back and, like you say, turn it off and have a good fucking time.
Yeah.
It's a possibility, which is why I'm willing to break the rewatch rule, you know?
Yeah,
Like, so I very well might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think it stands up for sure. Like
You're
I
gonna
did
get
not
some-
expect to enjoy it as much as I did this time. And I had such a blast with it this time.
You're going to hear a lot from me in the group chat tomorrow about us doing a rewatch and a Patreon episode, because we're going to be, I think we might be, depending on our guests, we might be down to what are we watching. So we got to do something else.
It's going to depend on what I will talk. We can talk about that.
I'm just saying, I'm going to blow up the chat tomorrow and we're going to talk about this because I want to do the rewatch and a Patreon episode about the rewatch.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. But so yeah, I get, because I saw a lot of reviews talking about that, because this was definitely one of those situations where I immediately went to Letterboxd and was like, what am I missing?
Right.
So clearly I'm missing something. and yes, that was a lot of reviews said that, like, that the end is very chilling for that reason, and it's very disturbing and terrifying that it's just a crazy guy and he's still in the house.
Right.
So yeah, I get that, and yes, I will even admit that, like, the phone ringing over the credits is pretty creepy.
Yeah.
But,
Particularly because you've grown accustomed to knowing what that phone ringing means,
right.
and so the implication of that is ringing along with that sound in your ears. And it, again, it's the ambiguity. Does he not? Is that what happens? This movie was distributed in the United States by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers hated the ambiguous ending of this film. And so they suggested a more concrete ending to Bob Clark. And I'm just going to pitch this to you, Brett, and I want you to tell me which one that you would rather see.
Right.
So the film ends, Olivia Hussey in the bed. Everyone leaves the room. Chris is presumably, like, he's in there. The cops leave. Someone is staying watching the house. Everyone kind of goes off. And then we cut back to is Olivia Hussey's character Jess? Is that that's her name, Jess.
Yeah, it is.
We cut back to Jess, who wakes up in bed, and Chris is laying next to her, and Chris says, "Don't tell them what we did, Agnes," and kills her. The end.
What? Who?
Chris was the Claire's boyfriend, the first guy that the first girl that died. He was her boyfriend, who was kind of sticking around the whole movie.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any sense because no, I guess he does leave right before Claire dies. So I guess that makes sense. It could work. I mean,
it doesn't work with the POV at the beginning, but the rest of it could, yeah.
Wait, are you guys talking about the girl that got suffocated with the bag?
Yeah.
You're talking about the girl that's up in the attic with the bag over her head?
Claire, yeah.
The girl with the bag over her head in the attic?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys know there's a girl in the attic with a bag over her head? Did you guys know that?
Tucker's doing
this movie wants to keep reminding us
every
fucking seconds that this motherfucker's in the attic with a bag. We get it. I get it. And then once our den mother joins her on the hook, she's just along for the ride, dude. She's just part of that now. Like after every other scene, it's like, hey, you guys remember up in the attic? You guys remember that?
Don't forget there's dead bodies upstairs.
It even is. That's the ending shot of the movie.
It's such a stark and disturbing image that I get why they keep cutting back to it. I get it.
I guess from an artistic standpoint, but as an audience member, it makes me feel like they're treating me like an idiot. Kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Now that you mention it, it's not something that I clocked myself, but you're right.
I could, if it were less often, like it would be okay, but I'm not kidding you guys. After it happens, every other scene, it's just they're like, hey.
Yeah. After every scene that's in the house, they cut to her in the attic.
Like I said, even the ending scene is a big pull out from that window. And speaking of the ineptitude of the cops, you could see her from the fucking street.
Yep.
In like cloudy weather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which it's a great segue, which brings me to number 3.
Complaint number 3.
Complaint number 3.
The end of Brett's trifecta.
There's things in this movie that make zero fucking sense. One, what was the deal with the dead kid? That didn't go anywhere. It didn't matter.
The first victim is kind of that was my thought.
I guess. But I guess it's the same thing as the first caller. Like, is it the same person? Is it not?
Right.
Why the fuck
would I
think anything else? Is it relevant? Yes. Is it relevant?
And I guess
it didn't seem like it.
It's relevant. I don't know. This is how I see it. It's relevant in terms of setting the stage for everyone just kind of being a little freaked out and a little creeped out already.
Well, and I agree with that, but I think it only works about half the time because I think the people making this film were trying to make it very slow on purpose because they want it to be very suspenseful, and half the time that really works, and the other half of the time you're sitting in this movie like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything?
In fairness, you also have to fill out a feature-length runtime, so
who cares? It's like the opposite of Back to the Future, where like you watch Back to the Future, every scene, every piece of dialogue, every shot moves the plot forward.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this movie, like sometimes they stop for a bit and it really does work for suspense, but sometimes they stop for a bit and do some shit that doesn't fucking matter, that is just a waste of my fucking time in this movie.
You know what I mean? Screeching halt. Yeah, the guy, the cop that gets shot at the end, the cop that gets shot in the ass at the end, and there's that whole fucking scene
because everybody's on edge, man. The whole town's fucking up in arms about this.
Well, okay, but that's apparently what the dead kid was supposed to do too. Why do you got to reiterate it again?
I agree with you, Brett, but also I do love that scene. That old man just being like, he would fit right in with the MAGA crowd, dude.
I shove that gun up your ass sideways. Yeah.
It is pretty funny.
It's great. Yeah, no, he is. Yeah.
Pointless?
No,
maybe.
Completely agree with you.
Pointless, maybe. Entertaining,
hilarious.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's one of those moments of comedy that I think this movie doesn't get enough credit for, like that and the fellatio scene in the police office the first time, where Margot Kidder is telling Nash that the phone number, and he doesn't know what fellatio, clearly has no idea what you think he does, and then it becomes very evident that he
And
has
you're
no
like,
idea.
oh wait. And that joke would be a lot better if I didn't just like loathe her character in this movie. Like, I see what they're trying to do, and I want to have that relationship with that character where we're like, yeah, we're a sassy bit. No, she's just annoying. Just annoying.
And it definitely hits different, knowing how she died. So
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh yeah. I hadn't
So-
considered that, but now that you mention it,
Right.
it's very unfortunate that she
do
put
not pour one out for her. I mean, do,
no.
but not,
Right.
but don't.
No.
Show
Yeah.
respect, but yeah, respectfully.
Yes.
Which and to the fellatio point, yeah. Like they said, they could have just let that be a funny joke.
Mm-hmm.
But then later on in the movie, when you might have even forgotten that joke,
Mm-hmm.
they just lampshade it. Like, this, here you go.
Yep.
We're gonna make sure you knew that was funny earlier, and we're gonna have this random other detective who we haven't seen before just laughing the whole fucking time for no.
And that is literally all that that character does. That is the only thing that character does, is just laugh at inappropriate shit. Like, because when the cop gets shot in the ass, what's he doing? He's standing there laughing. That is that character. And I kind of, if anyone out there is a filmmaker and just wants to cast me in a movie as the guy who stands in the corner and laughs at everything, please do. I would love to play that part.
I'd watch that movie.
The funny thing is in the credits, he's billed as laughing detective, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But he has a name. He calls him by name in the last scene. His name is Buchanan. I don't know why he wasn't billed that way in the credits.
Because nobody would know who Buchanan was, but they sure do know who Laughing Detective is. They sure do know who that motherfucker is.
That's a fair point.
This defining trait.
Right.
Always laughing.
Always laughing.
Yeah.
Look, everyone's got something. He's got laughing.
What a great character that really added to this film. Speaking of the cops, though, then the final bit of this trifecta of gripes, which I guess is intentional that the cops are inept, but like, you're telling me
you don't have a movie if they're not.
Right.
Because you're telling me that a major murder happens in a house and they don't sweep the entire place at all.
Right.
That doesn't make a damn bit of sense. But
especially since the case that these murders are partially based on was one of the first cases to ever use like forensic evidence to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
You guys heard about this? You seen this?
Well, yeah, no, that's something we haven't touched on. Is this is kind of based on a true story,
but also based on the urban legend of the babysitter.
Yeah,
but story. I mean, it's kind of, it's a dual thing, but yeah. Tucker, you wanna take that?
Well, this is kind of sort of based on a dude named Wayne Bowden, who was a serial killer. I'm going to admit to you that I'm kind of reading off Wikipedia now, kind of trying to paraphrase to make it sound natural, but I don't want to. I like to have integrity, so I like to let the listeners know when it's not off the cuff, He was a serial killer and someone who had sex with people without consent as well. And why did we mention that? There was a connection. We were talking about something, and I was like, "Well, and based on what it's,
yeah,
what was my thing? What was my point?"
This was based on an actual case, like actual murders that took place in Canada around this time.
Oh, the forensic evidence. Yeah,
yes.
I was gonna say, like, the fact they didn't even sweep the house for anything, and just how careless they were at the end, and to see that it was based on, again, this guy who was a serial killer in Canada, and the way that he was caught was because he bit the lady's boobs. He was a boob biting guy. To where it was hard for them to get dental imprints, but they got them, and they used them to find him and to convict him, which that's one of the first cases of that being a thing, where like forensic evidence in any way, shape, or form had a part in convicting someone. And
Fucking wild.
it's kind of a landmark sort of deal. And then for the cops in this to just like, oh, somebody's dead. Well, we'll get rid of that body. There's no body. We don't know they're dead. It's a missing person. Wait a minute. Yeah, they're just
Yeah.
they're a little daffy. And also, I raised this question to the urban legend of the calls are coming from inside of the house.
Mm-hmm.
How the fuck, unless you have different lines, separate lines, how the fuck does a call come from the same number? It doesn't. You can pick up the receiver and someone picks up another receiver and you can talk to that person, but you can't call someone over one line in the same house.
I'm
The
gonna let
call
Brett take
can't be
this one.
coming from inside the house. Take
Well,
it, Brett.
no, this just reminded me of another problem I had.
I was going to say they actually do address that there is another line in the house. They
I
they
didn't
do
catch
address
that.
that in the movie. Yeah, I
An attic
caught
line.
that this time. Yeah.
How? Because I can't imagine in the 70s that soundproofing was a thing. How, if this guy is what appears to be screaming all of these things, especially in one of the last calls, he is very loudly
Mm-hmm.
talking on that phone, and Jess is the only one in the house when that
Mm-hmm.
call comes in. How in the actual fuck does she not hear him?
Straight up, not a creature was stirring.
No.
And she's the only motherfucker there.
Not even a goddamn mouse.
And they might be at the furthest points possible in that house that they can be, but she's still going to hear it, man.
To which I
She
would
can
just
follow
say,
it easily.
I am willing to suspend my disbelief to that regard. You
I
are
guess.
not, but
Well,
I
look,
guess.
I love to suspend my disbelief. I do it all the time to watch pretty much any movie.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Right,
But
all the people who survived in Scream 6, come on, you guys. And we love
Yeah.
that movie.
yeah,
We do.
It's
Sorry,
okay.
continue.
some of that shit doesn't make sense. Dude gets stabbed 1,000,000 times in the torso and still lives somehow.
Mhm.
Anyway, so yeah, I do that all the time, but like, I have a limit to that. Like, if something is glaringly, obviously not possible, and they're just doing it for the contrivance of the movie, that's where I take issue with it. Like, give me something to explain how she doesn't hear him. Doesn't have to be much. That's a simple line earlier in the movie about how these walls are really thick and you can't hear your neighbor or something. I don't fucking know. Like,
Yeah,
this
it
something.
could be easily explained away.
Yeah,
Easy.
something. It doesn't have to be a big elaborate explanation. Just
I mean, I get it. I get where you're coming. It's never bothered me. I thought about it like briefly during this rewatch and just kind of put it out of my head because again, I was just having a good time. And didn't want anything to ruin my good time, damn it. So yeah, that's why we talk, man. That's what we're friends. Look, I've ruined plenty of your good times, so you're due, or I'm due. But like I and it's a 3-story house with an attic, so he's in the attic. She's on the ground floor. Sounds traveling through multiple floors to get to her. Maybe
Counterpoint, that phone table right by the steps. So if it's going to carry anywhere, it's going to carry right down those fucking steps. Now, if she were in some corner hallway or in a room or something, I get that. But no, she's in the foyer. So pretty much anything that's happening in the house, if it's loud enough, she's going to fucking hear it.
Yeah. I don't tell you, it just didn't bother me. I don't know.
especially, and I just thought of this, especially when they go out of their way to cover sound when Barb gets killed. Like, they go out of their way to make sure she doesn't hear it.
With the carolers, yeah.
Yes. So, like, what? It doesn't. What? I don't understand.
And I guess all of his, I don't know, he feels like he's whisper screaming. Like, it feels very, like, stage screamy kind of.
Yeah, except for that last one. The last one is really what I'm taking umbrage with. Because it does sound like he's actually shouting.
Straight up
not,
unhinged.
And by that
loud
point,
as fuck.
like, by that point, I think you're just so, like, I was anyway. I was, like, so in it that it didn't bug me at all. So, I don't know, man.
I spent most of that scene going, she hears him now. She's going to hear him now. She never heard him.
No. No, she didn't hear him, man.
I was like, oh, this is gonna pay off. She's gonna hear him now.
She did the thing. She started. Our girl Olivia Hussey started the trope in slasher films.
Right.
Is towards the end of the movie, the one girl goes into a certain area or several areas, a house of horrors sometimes, where she walks in and realizes that her friends are dead.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like a bloody mess. Like, it happens in every slasher movie. It's always some of the best parts of some of those movies, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best parts of this movie, particularly the pan
it's
over.
One of the best parts of the original Halloween, I think, too, is when she's just like finding them all.
The pan over to the door, like the crack in the door, between the door and the wall, and his eye, just that giant brown eye just staring at her.
What? So your boy, he's got a red eye. Like, his eye is red. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Why is his eye red? Is that supposed to imply something?
The world may never know.
No. Yeah.
But yeah,
this guy needs lore, goddammit.
He just needs a little. Well, then,
or
Brett,
some Visine, one of the two.
Wait till next week, Bam, because you're gonna get so much fucking lore next week.
I'm so excited for everyone.
Because I hear you all out there going, well, why do you like Halloween so much? Is because is he ambiguous? Do we know what the fuck he is? Is he a man? Is he evil personified? No, we have no fucking idea. But I still got some backstory.
And in that first one too, like, they don't give you a lot to work with, so like that's even better. Like, don't flesh out a story and then make it ambiguous. With Michael Myers, they give you what he was like as a child, what he did as a child, and then boom, 15 years later, here he is as an adult who doesn't speak, who just fucking kills people.
Which I think this might be the time to talk about the attempts at a sequel to this movie.
Were there?
No.
It doesn't fit the format.
Well, I'm gonna pull the Brett argument on this one, in that pretty much any horror film, pretty much, if it does well enough, is gonna get sequels. So,
well, I'll write that down, because that's any movie that doesn't have a sequel. I'll go ahead and do that. Write that down. Any movie doesn't have a sequel. Got it.
Horror movies
notorious for it.
They are, and the fact that someone didn't pick up this movie and make a sequel. I mean, Bob Clark,
especially
wasn't
with the ending.
Exactly. I mean, and it's really easy. You pick up like moments later, and they're like, you basically just solve the ambiguity of the ending, one way or the other. That's all you have to do.
Halloween's got this ending too, because at the end of that movie, you don't know what the fuck's going on.
Correct.
Because he's gone. He shot him 6 times.
I shot him 6 times.
Well, yeah, but Loomis being there, and how much, like, you learn so much about Michael through Loomis through the course of the movie. If you had a Loomis, shout out to Behind the Mask. If you had a Loomis,
an Ahab, yeah,
an Ahab the whole
time.
Gotta
have an Ahab.
Yeah, like, I might have bought into this a little bit more.
And I think that might be one of the more brilliant strokes of Halloween, is the addition of that kind of character to sort of build out the threat a little more, without making the threat the threat's still vague as hell in Halloween, but not making it quite as vague.
No.
Well, that may be one of the
master strokes.
You see him in Halloween. That's the big difference. That's what makes it so that Halloween can do everything that this movie did in the exact same way, while it being something completely different. Does that make sense? Did I say something dumb?
No.
Okay. All right.
I got it.
Okay.
I'm just making sure. So Bob Clark does not himself have any plans to sequelize this, although he did have like the lore of Billy kind of.
Isn't he dead?
He is now, yeah.
Okay.
He died in 2007.
You said that made it sound like he wasn't.
No,
like in a car accident too, or something, right?
Yeah, he was in a car accident. He got hit by a drunk driver. Don't drink and drive.
Golly.
But he had never had any plans to make a sequel initially. We'll probably talk about this a little more next week. Wink.
Oh, because he executive producer did.
He did.
First remake.
He is a kind of a mentor to Glenn Morgan, who was the director of the remake.
Sweet. I can't wait to see that movie.
Yeah.
It'll be like a Tom Savini, George Romero sort of affair.
I will warn you in advance, it got Weinsteined. So don't get your hopes up too high. But
Son
is
of a
there
bitch.
is there a director's cut?
nope.
Release the fucking whoever directed it's cut.
Morgan. Release
Hashtag
the Morgan cut.
release the Morgan cut. Let's make
We
it viral, boys.
the so John Carpenter and Bob Clark are working on a movie together. And Carpenter was like, you ever going to do a sequel to Black Christmas? And Clark's like, I don't want to do it. And Carpenter, they use actually a lot of the lore that Clark had in his head for Billy gets used in the 2006 film. Not all of it, because some of it's, we'll talk about it next week.
Nice.
But a lot of that lore gets used. And so Carpenter goes, okay, but if you did, what would it be? Like Clark's like, I kind of don't want to do horror anymore. I'm kind of done with it. I'm over it. Like he goes, I want to make another Christmas classic, but this time about, a little kid growing up in Indiana who's going to shoot his eye out. That's the movie I want to make.
That's his other Christmas movie.
That's his other Christmas classic. And then he does
insane.
He does another college movie too.
Which
takes kind of the other view of like the brutalizing of women, which is Porky's. So
he sure did do the Porky's.
So
Bob Clark is fucking wild, man.
Bob Clark's a man of that man's filmography is fucking insane. It really
did a sequel to Porky's. He couldn't do a sequel to Black Christmas. Come on, man.
So Carpenter's like, okay, if you're going to do it though, what are you going to do? He goes, I don't know. The next year he gets out of jail and goes back to the house and does it all again. And we call it, I don't know, he gets released at a different time. So maybe we call it Halloween.
Dun, dun, dun.
What?
This is the story that
who brought you Baby Geniuses and Baby Geniuses 2 comes Black Christmas 2 Halloween.
So this is the story that Clark tells, but Clark also is very quick to say, no, he didn't steal anything from me. I mean, he was certainly influenced by Black Christmas, the POV,
but they were pals,
color.
Man. Like, who cares anyway? Like, they were buds. I don't think they even gave a fuck.
And Clark is like, people ask Clark, well, are you mad? He kind of sold us. He goes, he didn't steal anything. Like he created his own story. Did it have some similarities? Was it clearly influenced by it? Yes. Do I care? No. Like
sometimes, like in the instance of Bob Clark in this instance, and your boy George Romero, you realize when you create a genre,
right?
You're like, oh shit, I just did something. Like this is a thing now.
Yeah.
What's that quote about good artists steal? Look at the first half of that.
It's good artists borrow, great artists steal.
There you go. There it is.
Yeah. And which, I mean, which means there are a lot of great artists who stole like Bob Dylan stole so much of his early shit.
Well, we're all just like doing a variation on the first thing that was ever done. Like musicians,
there's nothing new under the sun.
On the first time a caveman like figured out how to sing a fucking song.
Correct.
Like it's just a variation on that shit.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun, man. It's all been done.
You
as the Bare Naked Ladies once sang.
On everything that's ever influenced you.
Right.
And art.
And I mean, and particularly looking around today where all art feels like it's homaging something. I mean, have you seen a Quentin Tarantino movie that should just be called Homage the Movie? Like, geez.
I feel like it's gotten more blatant over the years.
For sure.
Like,
I think Tarantino has a lot to do with that. He kind of like the king of lampshading his references, but yeah.
Well, I feel like he pushed the envelope, and then that gave everybody license to just like open the envelope and take everything out and scatter it all over the table
without understanding what they were doing. It became very hacky. Like he's a man who can do it skillfully. Not everyone can do it skillfully. Like everyone sees a Tarantino movie, and because he makes it look so effortless, it's like, oh fuck, I could do that. And no, you can't. Sit down, amateur. But I mean, yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. Like, and so I think there was another attempt at a sequel, like after I'll just go ahead and do this now. I'll probably bring it up again next week. But after the remake bombed, Clark does the Wicker Man thing, which is, geez, that wasn't good. Tell you what, I'm just going to make a sequel to the original. And which is what the author of the original novel, The Wicker Man, did. He saw the remake of The Wicker Man and was just like, you know what? I didn't like that, so I'm just going to write my own sequel to The Wicker Man. So he did. He wrote another sequel to The Wicker Man. And Clark was going to do a direct sequel to the original film, which I think Olivia Hussey was going to come back to do as like a new house mother in charge of like a new set of sorority girls. And that he ended up dying before that ever got off the ground. And so the sequel was
what year
never
was
made.
that? Was this man way ahead of his time? like figuring out the.
Well, it came out after the remake, so this would have been like 2006, 2007, and he died in 2007.
Dude out here thinking up what the Legacy sequel was before
Mm-hmm.
the Legacy reboot, the
Yeah.
rebootquel or whatever
The
the fuck
rebootquel
they call it.
I mean, yeah, that David Gordon Green, I think, popularized. He did not originate, but I think he kind of popularized it with his most recent run of Halloween sequels. But yeah, man, that's kind of Tucker sprinting in from the bathroom to make a point.
I would argue that H2O was one of the first requels, as it was one of the first to ignore several sequels and only be a sequel to
the first two.
Halloween 2, yeah.
So, yeah,
that's all I wanted to say.
Fair point.
Sorry.
That is a fair point. No. I should have realized. But I sort of forget
washed my hands.
Exists.
They're still a little wet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the forgotten Halloween like set there, like that. I think that's because H2O is good, but I think that its Resurrection comes next, right? Is so bad that it kind of
ruins
taints
H2O
retroactively. Yeah.
H2O, I think it's kind of a movie like Hook, where every time that I see it, I like the movie less, but I still love the movie. And now in the instance of Hook, we've got Dustin Hoffman's performance that just will make it so that I'll never not like that movie. But H2O,
I will not stand for this Bob Hoskins erasure, sir.
Hey, Bob Hoskins is supporting that performance. Okay, and they are a duo.
Giving one of the best on his own. Man, I'm just saying.
And I just can't.
Don't stop me, Smee. Stop me, Smee.
Smee, try to stop me. Smee, try to stop me. Smee, what are you doing? Get off your ass and get over here. I can. Oh my god, yeah. I love
can't
that
bring
movie.
myself to disparage a Robin Williams film like ever.
Look, no, I do love Robin Williams.
Someone has clearly not seen Bicentennial Man, but okay.
It is what it is.
It's been a while since someone's seen Patch Adams, is all I'm saying.
Ooh, that's Coppola too. Ouch. Yeah. That's a double ouch for me.
Come on, man.
Which one? Patch Adams?
Yeah, that's Coppola, dude.
No, it's not. You're thinking
Jack. I'm thinking
You're
Jack,
thinking Jack.
You never go full Jack.
That was gonna be the next one I was gonna bring up. But yeah,
look, also isn't great, but I'm not gonna disparage it.
Hey. You know what else doesn't sit well with that movie? You know who else is in that movie?
Who that
kind of in the cold light of day, you're like, oh really? Bill Cosby's in that movie.
Okay. The Patch Adams or the Jacks?
The Jack. Yeah.
I gotta disparage it a little bit.
Yeah. See? I made Brett disparage a Robin Williams movie. I made you break your one rule.
Yeah,
that's why we're gonna be doing this dance forever.
1 hour photo exists. So that like the fact that that's even a thing that's out there, dude could have done 100 like good performances in shitty movies and it wouldn't matter because 1 hour photo exists.
Are you saying that in a good way or a bad way? I can't.
I really can't.
In a
tell.
good way. Have you guys seen 1 hour photo?
Right. Yes. I was like,
no, I have not.
What does he say?
Are you kidding me, Steven?
I am not kidding you, Tucker. I've never seen that.
Podcast over. At Disenfranchised Pod. Blah 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 blah. Steven's gonna go watch 1 hour photo. Bye, guys.
I'm going to bed, bitch.
You want to talk about a chilling performance?
Are you fucking nuts, Steven? How have you not seen? I'm so mad at you right now.
I saw Insomnia, and he's fucking incredible in that movie.
Oh yeah, that's on my list of Nolan movies to watch that people forget about. I just watched the following spoilers for what are we watching?
Oh fuck, what was I about to say? Oh no, Insomnia was the first Nolan movie I ever saw in theaters. That's what I was gonna say.
Oh nice, I had that on VHS. Steven, 1 hour photo is a thriller, a very creepy one with Robin Williams, and he plays a man who works at a 1 hour photo
I'm familiar
thingy
with the
in
premise,
the mall.
yeah.
You know, and it's directed by Mark Romanek, which is not how you say his name, but that's how I've said it for the last 20 years before I figured out how it was actually pronounced. So that's how I'm going to fucking say it. Who is my favorite music video director ever. And if you watch this film, Steven, I don't want to oversell it, but your life's gonna
I
change
have a
a bit.
feeling you're already overselling it, but okay.
No, Brett's got my back here. I'm not overselling it. This is a before and after
What,
times movie.
Mr. I Will Never Disparage a Robin Williams movie over here?
Well, I
Daddy.
did. You made me, so I've done that
Made
now.
you break your one rule.
Look, man, I can't. I didn't know there was a terrible human being in one of them. So
I mean, let's be honest. There's probably a lot of terrible human beings in Robin Williams movies.
Well, sure, but he's the one we know about.
And Bill Cosby's in a lot of stuff, man. You ever seen Ghost Dad? What a hoot.
Leonard Part 6.
Not a hoot. But all those movies he did with Sidney Poitier, man, it makes me, again, I will repeat that I'm so disappointed and saddened and just murdered inside. Like, a bit of my soul died when I found out who Bill Cosby really was.
Have
Because
you
this
not
man
seen
fucking
We Need to Talk
raised
About Cosby?
me.
Have you not seen
it's on my list, Steven. You told me I should watch it, I probably should watch it, but I keep passing by it because I can't do it, man. I can't. It hurts too much, man. It hurts too much.
That is the documentary that started me on my watching documentaries about terrible people.
Grew up on old school AMC where they did kind of the TCM thing, or the TMC, not Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but Turner Movie Classics. They did the TMC thing.
No, it's TCM. It's Turner Classic Movies. Same
thing. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Got it. But your boy grew up on AMC showing all those Bill Cosby, Sidney Poitier movies, of which my favorite is Let's Do It Again. And do you know I haven't been able to watch that movie since? You know how good all those fucking movies are?
But Tucker, I think that's why you need to talk about Cosby.
Look, I do need to, but I'm not ready.
You need to reckon with that.
Okay, look, I'm not ready. I'll get there.
That's fair. But you need to do that.
Like, are we kind of doing a bit? Yes, but also it's kind of real.
It is. Yeah.
Like, I do feel this way. Am I being silly? Yes. Is it real? Also, yes.
That's how you know, like, it's really funny, because it's rooted in truth.
This is why I drink, Bill Cosby. You did this to me.
I think you were drinking before that, but okay. Let's blame.
Not as much.
And just be careful you're not drinking around him. That's for sure.
Ooh.
Oh no.
Oof.
Moving on.
You're a bad boy. You're a bad boy. I appreciate you.
Black Christmas. To call back what I did, the intro for this episode, apparently one of Elvis's favorite Christmas movies. He would watch it every year, which is to say he watched it like for the next couple years after it came out, before he died, because he died like a couple years after that, like in 1976, I think. But he apparently watched it and liked it so much that his family kept watching it after he died in memory of him. Also, apparently one of Steve Martin's favorite movies. When he met
72 times, man.
When he met Olivia Hussey on the set of Roxanne, he's like, "You're in one of my favorite movies," and she's thinking, "Oh yeah, Romeo and Juliet," which is, I mean, she was a get for this movie because she had just done Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet, which was huge. And she's like, "Romeo and Juliet, yeah, I get that a lot." He's like, "No, Black Christmas. I've seen that movie like 27 times in the 80s." Like, he just loved that movie so much, and yeah,
like VHS, even it didn't even exist. Like, he had to have had like a print of this,
right?
That he watched on like a dirty sheet on his wall,
right? Which I could absolutely see Steve Martin doing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like it's become a kind of a cult classic, which brings us to next week, talking about the 2006 remake. But like, it becomes kind of this cult underground classic. Doesn't make a lot of money, though it is, at the time of its release, the fourth most successful Canadian film of all time. It grosses $4 million.
But it had some competition, though, I feel like is kind of a big part of that, right?
The two Canadian films that outgrossed at the time were the 1974 Richard Dreyfuss film, The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, and the 1970 French language film Du Femme en Or, directed by
what
Claude
I meant
Fournier.
was the week that it came out, it had some stiff competition.
That's the thing. Yes. It was released in America. Let me check IMDb here real quick. released in America on December 20th, 1974. However, the numbers doesn't go back that far. But I can tell you that the number one movie in America that weekend was a little movie in its second week starring Charles Bronson, would go on to start its own franchise and a spinoff that didn't. Death Wish was number one at the box office, and it would be unseated the following week by a little film called The Godfather Part 2.
Yes, that was a big one. That was a big one that kind of took away from this film, I think.
But in terms of like what this one grossed in America, give me a second here because I actually did have this information pulled up at one point and I have completely misplaced it.
What happened to it, man?
Oh, here it is. So it is initially released in America under the title Silent Night, Evil Night, because the studios thought that calling it Black Christmas would make people think it was a blaxploitation movie.
Yes.
Because why the fuck else would black be in a title? You racist
That's
70s
wonderful.
motherfuckers.
That would
Then
be,
they
no, I'm not gonna
re-released
say
it the
that.
following year and called it Black Christmas, and it did a lot better. Because they re-released it in August of the following year, and it grossed a lot more. I think it grossed about 86,340. So it makes about $1 million in the United States during 1975 from August to December, and then grosses a couple million in Canada as well. So it becomes it does fairly well, but it's still just kind of this minor. I think in terms of the overall box office of the 1974, which again, I kind of had to reverse engineer from a bunch of different sources, it's like 90th or like 96th or something on the list of the top 100. It's toward the bottom. The number one film of the year was a little movie called Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles was the number one movie in America.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
The number two film, a little movie called The Towering Inferno, which is actually not bad. Towering Inferno, fun movie.
Former nickname to past and future guests of the podcast, JP Leck, the Towering Infern Joe.
Ah,
because he's so tall, you see.
He is a tall drink of water. That one. The third highest grossing movie, Young Frankenstein. That's right. Mel Brooks has 2 movies in the top 5 for that year.
Steven, I think that's Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right. In fourth place, a little Charlton Heston film called Earthquake.
You ever notice how he acts through his teeth? Charlton Heston, he acts through his teeth.
That's why he's so good.
His teeth never part.
No, you really screwed the pooch last night, Harry. Go listen to our episode on True Lies. That was a good one. I like that movie.
Get it.
And then in fifth place,
cameo in Wayne's World.
And in fifth place, a little movie called Airport 1975. So that's 2 comedies and 3 disaster movies in the top 5. Rounding out the top 10, you've got Murder on the Orient Express, Benji, Herbie Rides Again, The Godfather
Benji,
Part 2.
Little doggy Benji.
Yeah. And Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. Those are the...
Well, that's a car movie. I like car movies.
So we got a couple car movies in there too. But Black Christmas...
For reference, I looked it up. $1 million in 1974 equals about $6.5 million nowadays.
Right.
For reference.
So yeah. I mean, not the kind of movie that people are like, oh yeah, let's make a ton of sequels to this. It earns about 1.3 million total during its theatrical run in Canada. Total.
It's also going against a Bond film, which is worth mentioning.
The Man with the Golden Gun is also coming out that week, right?
Spoilers, I guess, for what you were about to say. Sorry, Stephen.
No, you're fine. No, I was getting ready to move on to the Tomatometer score, so no, that is worth mentioning. Not one of the best Bond movies, though. I will say, I'm not as has previously been mentioned on this podcast, not a big fan of Roger Moore.
I just don't give a fuck about James Bond. I wish I did, because it looks like everybody who loves that stuff has a great time.
There are some really fun ones, and there's some really not as fun ones. And the more stuff is just too goofy for me. He's just a very goofy James Bond, and I don't care for that.
Yeah,
I like people who have played James Bond. I like Timothy Dalton.
No, yeah.
I like Pierce
Timothy
Brosnan.
Dalton, my favorite Bond. I just want to throw that out there. Timothy Dalton, my favorite.
My
Bond.
favorite.
Period.
That's it. My favorite. Full stop.
Full stop. Yeah, no, I'm the same, Tucker, except for GoldenEye, and I just love GoldenEye because I played the shit out of the game with my friends in high school.
Oh yeah.
So I don't like it as a movie. I may have seen the movie like once, but
you know the broad strokes of the plot because you played that game so much, both in single and multiplayer mode.
Absolutely.
Fuck yeah, dude.
The tomatometer score for Black Christmas is a 72%. The critics' consensus, the rare slasher with enough intelligence to wind up the tension between bloody outbursts. Black Christmas offers fiendishly enjoyable holiday viewing for genre fans. I agree.
Word.
The meta score on this one is apparently all of my tabs stopped loading, and I'm probably frozen right now.
That's not using Chrome, aren't you, Steven?
I am. I have to get this bloody thing to load. I'm gonna start that one
up your
over.
RAM, dude.
I'm gonna take this again.
Just like that. Straight how?
Oh no.
Did you get it yet, Steven?
Yes, I've got it.
Okay,
I'm trying to say it and you keep talking. I'm trying to give you a clean edit point, bitch.
I'm trying to help you, and it turns out I'm just making it worse.
You are that's just making it worse. Don't tell them what we did, Agnes. The meta score on this one is a 65 based on generally favorable reviews from 9 critics.
That's fair.
Right. And the Letterboxd score, which is also going to take a while to load because... Oh, and I just closed it because I hate life.
You son of a bitch.
I'm the worst. Steven... I'm just the worst person.
Golly. No, you're not, man. But like, come on, man.
But also, yes, you are. The Letterboxd score is... The Letterboxd score is a 3.8. Brett.
That's fair.
Brett, out of 5 stars, how do you rate 1974's Black Christmas?
I'm right there with the average at a 3.5.
3.5. Tucker, what about you?
Surprisingly, that's a 3 for me.
Oh,
I did enjoy a lot of aspects of this movie. I think upon further rewatches, my score will probably go up, but as it stands right now, it's a 3 out of 5.
Whereas I initially had it at a 3.5, and after this rewatch, I bumped it up to a 4.5 because I just had a fucking blast with this.
Fucking hell, man. Damn.
Yeah, man.
That makes me excited. Again, you guys, we got to do that Patreon show, man. I'm not leaving it alone. I'm blowing up that chat tomorrow. I'm doing it. Right. We got to do it.
Yeah, that is what we got for 1974's Black Christmas. You can find us on the social medias. We're the Disenfranchised Podcast, in case you forgot what podcast you were listening to. You can find us on most social media platforms. Specifically, you can find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd at DisenfranchPod. You can also find us on Patreon, as Tucker mentioned before, patreon.com/disenfranchpod. Are we going to do that Black Christmas rewatch? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe we're
going to have a free week. I feel like we should.
Let's find out. And you can also shoot us an email, disenfranchpod@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, please go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a nice, big old, fat, juicy 5-star rating and review. We really appreciate it and would absolutely love to hear what you have to say about us, provided it's good. If it's not good, just shut up. But yeah. I am your host, Stephen Foxworth. You can find me on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Chewy Walrus. Brett, where can we find you on socials these days?
You can find me on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blueski at sus_warlock, except for Blue Sky, which didn't let me put the underscore.
Bastards.
So it's just sus warlock on
Blue Sky.
Warlock, yeah. What the fuck is that?
I'm over there on Bluesky,
The
like
nerve.
2002, posting song lyrics. So come check
The
it out.
nerve.
That's true. You are over there like it's your own personal MySpace page, man. I love it for you.
Yeah, look, man.
Or like Yahoo Messenger, where you would just show
your
the
status
songs you were
message.
playing.
Fuck
Yeah,
dude.
dude.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
man. I'm an elder millennial. It is my right to post song lyrics on social media. Right?
And like they do that
I
on
liked that post that you
Instagram,
made. Yep.
but it feels dirty now. You know what I mean? Like when I go onto my Instagrams, it'll say like who's live, and some of those people, it'll show what they're listening to on whatever they're listening to it on.
No thanks.
And like, I don't know, that felt okay back in the day, but now I don't know. It just hits different. You know?
Hey Tucker, while you're prattling on about that, why don't you prattle on about your socials for a little bit?
Well, you can find me as always on the Instagrams and on the YouTubes at Ice909. That's ICENINE, the number 0 and the number 9. Also on Instagram, you can check out Tuck Mugs, which is Tuck_Mugs. This is the world premiere announcement of the next Tuck Mugs post, which will be sometime this week. Like, we want to tell you when it's going to be, but we're kind of still trying to keep that pop-up feel, you know, that real independent vibe and shit, you know. But this is the announcement. Next week's post, we're finally going to get a look at my hand-painted tulips. I've been saving this one, you guys, because my hand-painted tulips, it's perfection. You'll see. You'll all see. So
I'll show you.
I'll show you. No, look, wait for the post. It'll probably drop like maybe, I don't know, Wednesday. That's just an estimation. It depends.
So the day before this episode drops?
We've been quality testing it, and there's still some bugs in the post that we have to kind of work out and figure out. Like, we don't want this to affect the end user. You know, we want this to be something that comes out clean. We don't want a cyberpunk situation. You know, we want something that's gonna, it's gonna be good. Next week, you guys, the tulips. Get excited. Also, still need some guest mugs, because if you want more than just like a post every 3 to 4 weeks, we gonna need some guest mugs. And not only am I talking about the people who are listening now, but I'm talking to Brett and I'm talking to Steven. You guys, yeah, you're the only Steven that I'm talking to right now that's here.
I don't know who you got behind your monitor, dude. I don't know nothing.
You can see. It's a wall, dude. Look, I can't go any. I'm trying to. It's a wall, man.
You're a really good actor.
Anyway,
I've seen a movie you were in.
You guys, oh, stop it, Steven. So guest mugs, you guys. I need one from each of you. I need to have one like in my pocket. If there's like a 2-week spread where I'm like, oh man, like I'm trying to get this post together. If only I had a guest mug. So I need guest mugs from you guys, and I need one guest mug from each listener on my desk by Monday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern time.
All right, fine.
Because, look, you guys, I'm not running out of mugs. That's not the problem, I swear. I'm not running out of mugs, okay? I did not show too much of my hand too early. I would never do that. Absurd. It's
good
just
day,
that I'm
sir.
trying to... Yeah, I said good day. You get nothing. Anyway, no, give me some guest mugs, because I really would like to pad out these long stretches. It's just in the winter, my schedule's a little different, and the times that I drink coffee are a little different. So the time I use mugs, like it's more of a time where I don't really have time to sit and take a pic and write a whole little doodad story about it. And so I need some guest mugs to pad the winter out. So calling all disenfranchised listeners, if this is your first time listening to this podcast and you hated every second of it, great. That's wonderful. But still send me a guest mug, please.
That's not great at all. What are you talking about?
No, man. What's great about the world is that people be liking different shit, like for different reasons. So if somebody doesn't like our stuff, that's almost as good as somebody liking our stuff, because that means that we affected them in a way. You know, we reached them, positive or negative. We spoke to them and they heard us. Yeah. So, there you go. There you go. Good job, you guys. Well done. Take us home, Steven.
Right on. Well, we'll be back next week with our very special guest. I really hope they're able to record with us tomorrow. Otherwise, that's going to be awkward. Talking about Black Christmas 2006. Until then, I am your host, Stephen Foxworthy. For my co-hosts, Brett Wright and Tucker. Until next time, you'll be doing all right with your Christmas of white, but I'll have a black Christmas.